we're going to move on to our next segment now. What we do is we've started taking every week some questions off of Reddit's R Fantasy Football subreddit, and letting the commish answer them. We'll be posting them as messages to the users that ask them. So we're going to go ahead and get into that. The first question comes from user 3th0s. He says, I am really lost and need a second, third opinion. 10-team league, keep up to 3 guys, half a point PPR, otherwise everything is standard. He can keep Stacy in the 14th, Josh Gordon in the 9th, Andre Ellington in the 14th, Peyton Manning in the 2nd at the 12th overall pick, DeAndre Hopkins in the 10th. He says he's ranked them in an approximate order that he'd like to keep them. It's probably worth the risk-reward of wasting a later spot on Gordon, not only for this year, but for the next few years even. So, Commish, what do you got to say to user 3th0s?
Yeah. Well, the first question I would have, which he doesn't touch on, is that how does his league handle it when you have 2 possible keepers in the same round? He mentioned Zach Stacy in the 14th as a keeper, and then also Andre Ellington. So I can say what we do, and what I think is actually the best thing to do in this regard, is if you have 2 guys you want to keep in the same round, you clearly can't keep them in the same round. This doesn't work that way. So you have to keep one of them around sooner. So you keep one of them in the 13th and one of them in the 14th if you're going to do it. So that's what we do in Red Zone Warriors. I don't know how his league handles it, or if you're just frankly not allowed to keep 2, then I have to make this decision, but I just don't have that information. So for me, bottom line is, I definitely throw back Peyton Manning. We never advise keeping a quarterback as a keeper. I don't care really what their value is, and in this case, he's pretty much getting no value for Peyton Manning. It's a 10-man league. Position scarcity is what it is, and to keep even Peyton Manning, who's definitely going to regress from the numbers he put up last year, you just do not keep a quarterback. I don't care what the value is, but especially not the case here as well. So he gets thrown back. I'd also throw Hopkins back in there because his ADP is the 909, so you're not getting any value for him, and I'm just not all that high on him. And with the other keepers here, he's pretty much knocked out immediately. So basically for me, it's Stacy and Ellington are absolute no-brainers. I mean, to get these guys in the 14th rounds respectively, you are going to be starting off in a great spot with your RB situation if you can keep both Zach Stacy and Andre Ellington, even if you got to keep one of them in the 13th round. I mean, these guys are going, in the 3rd, 4th round, so that's a no-brainer. And the guy he mentioned, Gordon. I don't have a problem keeping Gordon in the 9th, especially because I don't really like the other guys here. I wouldn't keep Peyton, I wouldn't keep Hopkins. So I think go ahead if you feel good about it. Take a flyer on Gordon. We still don't know as of today what his situation is going to be, but the fact that you said you can keep him for multiple years. You didn't say anything about his 80, having to take him in like 2 rounds further up next year or so forth. That if you're going to take a flyer on a guy who may only have an 8-game suspension, and you can keep him for multiple years down the road, who's a wide receiver 1, top 3 guy, I would definitely do that. So go ahead if you can, keep Stacy, keep Ellington, and keep one Mr. Josh Gordon. All
right. Good deal, good deal. Our next question comes from user Rogue Kittens. He or she is in a 12-man standard PPR. They get to keep 3, no loss of picks. So they start in the 1st round picking. They're just keeping 3 guys off the bat. His possible keepers are Calvin Johnson, Arian Foster, Percy Harvin, and Andre Ellington. So what do you got for user Rogue Kittens?
Yeah, so in these type of situations, there's no loss of picks, he or she stated. So you're just keeping the best players you can. That's the bottom line. It's a 12-man PPR league. To me, Calvin and Ellington are absolute locks. I'm looked at this list of 4 guys, and I'm keeping those 2 hands down. It's not close. And even though I'm not all that high on Foster, especially where his ADP is, it's irrelevant to this guy because you just keep these guys. ADP doesn't really mean anything. I'd have to go Foster over Harvin. I mean, Harvin, as you know, we've all seen when he's on the field and healthy for you, he's super legit. He just got moved to Seattle, who's very run heavy, and Harvin's injury history is probably even worse than Foster's. And just the position scarcity. If Foster even puts up 70% of what he has in the past, you pair him up with Andre Ellington and whomever else you drafted, and then you've got Calvin Johnson there too. You can win your league that way. So we're going to cut Harvin. We're going to keep Calvin Johnson, Arian Foster, and Andre Ellington.
All right. So great answer there. We did 2 keeper questions, and now we're also going to do 2. They have another thread on our fantasy football, rate my team. So these are guys that did mock drafts or possibly drafted a team. They're throwing it up, asking other users to rate their team. So this guy, user Karate Explosions, is on an ESPN Snake Draft 10-team standard. His team is as follows, and I'm guessing these are the rounds they were taken in. Peyton Manning, Arian Foster, Rob Gronkowski, C.J. Spiller, Ryan Matthews, Victor Cruz, Rashad Jennings, Marquise Colston, Stephen Ridley, Fred Jackson. He says, I also got Hill, Ladarius, and Edelman in later rounds. Commish, I kind of don't. I'm not a big fan of this team, but what do you think of it?
Well, sorry, Karate Explosions, but I am also not a huge fan of this team, and I pray to God for your sake that this was a mock draft and was not a real draft, because I flat out don't like it. And sorry to have to give you that news, but let me tell you why. First off, if you've ever listened to this show before, you know that we hate the strategy of drafting a QB early, as you clearly did here. You ranked them, I believe, in the order of which you drafted them. Regardless, Peyton Manning is going at the end of the first, beginning of the second. So looking at this list, you would have probably drafted Peyton Manning in the first round here. The position is just so very deep. It's just a just a bad call, unless you're in some weird scoring system or a 2-quarterback league or whatever, to draft a quarterback in the first round. Just please don't do it. It's a bad decision. The numbers bear that out. Quarterbacks have never been as deep as they are, and Peyton Manning is not going to put up the numbers he did last year. That's just history says that. Second, if you do indeed draft a quarterback early, which again we advise you not to do, we would clearly not advise you to take a tight end early as well. You took Gronkowski in the 3rd round here after Peyton Manning in the 1st. And I wouldn't advise you vice versa doing this either. If you take Jimmy Graham in the 1st or something like that, do not take a quarterback in the 2nd or 3rd, because this frankly just flat out kills you at your other skill positions, your running backs and wide receivers, and that's what happened here. Third, as we just talked about earlier when we talked about Houston, I am not a fan of Arian Foster this year at all. And you have 4 starters with Gronk, Foster, Spiller, and Matthews that are either very injury prone or coming off bad years or both. And fourth, your wide receivers for a 10-man league are weak at best. I mean, seriously, in a 10-man league, those wide receivers are not very good, buddy. I'm just sorry to have to tell you that. I do believe that Cruz will have a bounce-back year in this new offense there in New York, and he's way better in PPR. But with only Colston and Edelman, who are also, again, better in PPR, and this is a standard league, that's not good depth behind Cruz. You're going to be hurting at this position all year long. So sorry, Karate Explosions, but I got to call it as I see it, and maybe and hopefully this is a mock draft, but if not, maybe you're in multiple leagues, and this advice will help you draft better teams in the future.
All right, good deal. Thank you, Rob. Thank you. We're going to move on to our next question from user Epicosmo. Epicosmo is in a 10-man league, PPR league. He has the 5th pick. The league consists of 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex that can be either running back, wide receiver, or tight end, kicker, defense, position. And his team is as follows, and again, these are the rounds that these guys were drafted. Calvin Johnson, A.J. Green, Le'Veon Bell, Alfred Morris, Keenan Allen, Cordell Patterson, Ray Rice, Ryan Matthews, RG3, Tony Romo, Dennis Pitta, the Arizona defense, Lamar Miller, Cecil Shorts, Kerry Robinson. He says the league is a mix of new and experienced players. This is his second year playing fantasy football and first doing PPR. He says he's pretty happy with the team, and thanks for any advice and input. I like this team. Rob?
Epi Cosmo, congratulations for winning your league. Boom! Congratulations. Go ahead and take that trophy because this team is awesome. I love this team. And what I really think made this team, Jay, is after going wide receiver, he or she went Calvin and A.J. Green, Bell falling to him or her at the 305, which is what that would have been in this 10-man league, and to follow that up with Morris in the fourth, who I believe people are absolutely completely missing the boat on this year, is just great. I mean, now Morris isn't a PPR running back, but he's a solid running back that gets a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns. And the only reason he was down a little bit last year is because the Redskins' offense was crap, but he looked just as good as he did the year before. The guy's a beast, and to get him as your RB2 after you went Calvin and AJ in your first 2 rounds is phenomenal. Keenan Allen also fell in his ADP to Epi Cosmo here. So you absolutely stole this guy in the 5th round, not to mention the upside of Cordell Patterson in the 6th. I mean, just unbelievable wide receivers. RG3 and Romo for QBs are great, and getting Dennis Pitta, a guy that Cushman and I are very high on, is also very solid. And you have great depth. I mean, to get great depth at both the running back position and the wide receiver position is great. Now, it is a 10-man league, so you'd expect decent depth, but this is really good depth. It's a great example, of why I like to pick personally from one of the middle spots, because it allows you, like it did Epi Cosmo here, to snag great value from your league mates when they make mistakes, as they clearly did in this draft, to let these guys fall to where they did for Epi Cosmo to snag these guys up. So well done, sir. Well done. You get the Commish's official stamp of approval.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And like I said, we'll be posting these videos to each of these users in Reddit. And we'll be doing this again every week. So Reddit users, stay tuned. If you want to hear your questions answered, you can tweet us at Red Zone Warriors or message us, user Red Zone Warriors on Reddit, and we'll be sure to answer any questions you have.
All right, so that wraps it up for the Reddit questions this evening, as well as our podcast. On our next show, we'll be breaking down the major training camp headlines and position battles in the NFC. So join us next week for that, when the Commish will be here alongside me in the beautiful state of Denver, Colorado. In the meantime, go to redzonewarriors.com, where you can watch previous episodes, see our rankings, and subscribe to and rate our show via iTunes. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter and tweet us all your fantasy football questions at Red Zone Warriors. So for the Cushman, I am Rob the Commish Smith, and remember, if you are taking a fantasy off season, you are already losing. We'll catch you next time.
Peace.